I stood on stage in full military dress uniform, chest tight with pride, hands steady despite the weight of the moment. But as I looked into the crowd, there was no one. No mother, no father, no siblings, no one. I was alone. That moment didn't break me. It forged me. Years later, I would return, not for hugs or homecomings, but to deliver the justice they never saw coming. If you've ever been underestimated, cast aside by the people who were supposed to love you most, then buckle in. This story is for every underdog who ever turned pain into power. Hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for one of the most satisfying revenge stories you'll hear today. Military Academy Auditorium, 2013. The cheers around me were deafening, parents clapping, siblings whistling, families beaming with pride. I stood tall on that wooden stage, my uniform crisp, my boots polished to a mirror shine. I should have felt pride, joy, something warm. Instead, I felt hollow. As the general pinned the insignia onto my lapel, my eyes scanned the crowd. Every face was filled with pride, except the faces I was searching for weren't there. My heart sank. No mom wiping away tears. No dad standing tall. No brothers punching my shoulder or yelling, "That's my boy." Just empty seats where they should have been. And just like that, my accomplishment, what should have been one of the greatest days of my life, felt like a wound. Why am I even surprised? I thought, jaw clenched, pulse pounding in my ears. Because this wasn't the first time they'd let me down. It was just the most painful. A family that forgot me. Growing up in the Tate household meant two things. Appearances were everything. Kyler didn't matter. I was the youngest of three. My older brother Mason was the golden child, heir to my dad's business empire. My sister, Camille, was the polished socialite, groomed to marry money and host galas. And me? I was the family embarrassment. Not because I failed at anything, but because I didn't fit into their curated little image. I love structure, order, discipline. I wanted something different, something real. When I enlisted, my father didn't even look up from his newspaper. My mother sighed like I told her I was joining a circus. No one cared. No one came to visit me in boot camp. No one even asked if I was still alive. But it was fine because I made a vow. If my family wouldn't stand by me in my rise, they'd sure as hell notice me in their fall. The fire they lit in me. Pain has a funny way of becoming fuel. I pushed myself harder than anyone else. I ran till my lungs gave out. Fought until my knuckles bled. Studied strategy like it was religion. And the more I suffered in silence, the stronger I got. I wasn't just chasing ranks. I was building something inside me that couldn't be broken. While my family sipped champagne in marble kitchens, I was sleeping in foxholes. While they posted selfies at yacht clubs, I was dodging bullets for a country that didn't even know my name. And when I finally started getting noticed, commendations, promotions, leadership roles, something strange happened. The calls started coming in. Not to say we're proud of you, but to ask for favors. The call that changed everything. I was in my bunk when I got the message. From Dad. Son, I'm dealing with some business turbulence. Need to chat. Urgent. Son? He hadn't used that word in 10 years. Curious, I answered. Turns out, the Tate family empire wasn't so bulletproof after all. My father's luxury furniture business was hemorrhaging cash. Shady financial practices. Supplier lawsuits. Silent investors pulling out. And my mom? Her charity organization had been exposed as a front for tax write-offs. Her public image was crumbling. Even Camille, perfect, golden Camille, was getting dragged through social media for selling counterfeit designer items online. It was poetic, but I didn't laugh. Not yet. I said I'd look into it. And that's when the plan started forming. Planting the seeds. My military training had taught me many things: patience, discipline, strategy. But above all, it taught me how to analyze weaknesses. Not just in the enemy's defenses, but in the people themselves. And my family? They were riddled with weaknesses. My father, obsessed with legacy and image. My mother, addicted to public validation. Camille, insecure beneath the surface, desperate to stay relevant. They wore masks, perfect smiles, public charm, but underneath it all, they were crumbling. All I had to do was give them a little nudge. I started with the basics: financial records, digital footprints, business filings. I used military-grade OSINT tools, disguised my searches, rerouted through foreign servers. Every email, every text, every shady wire transfer. I collected it all. Then I created a new identity. Clean. A shell company that would become my Trojan horse. I posed as a financial advisor with a reputation for rescuing sinking ships. I hired actors to pose as a team. I had business cards printed, a website, fake testimonials. And then I reached out. Dear Mr. Tate, I've been briefed on your current portfolio and believe we can offer a lifeline before your assets fall further in value. Confidential consultation, no obligations. He took the bait. Hook, line, sinker. The performance begins. We met in a high-rise office I rented for the illusion. A glass-walled corner suite downtown, minimalist, professional. My father walked in, still clinging to his designer suit and Rolex like they gave him power. He didn't recognize me. Of course he didn't. I'd altered my appearance, grew out my beard, tinted glasses, slightly different accent. He called me Mr. Stone. I shook his hand firmly. Mr. Tate, I've reviewed your numbers. Let me be blunt. You're weeks away from defaulting on at least 3 accounts. I can buy you time, but only if we act fast. He looked panicked, but tried to hide it. What's the catch? He asked. Transparency, I replied. I'll need full access to your ledgers, vendor contracts, and silent partnerships. Everything. He hesitated, then agreed. And just like that, I had full access to his entire financial skeleton. What I found was worse than I imagined. A house built on lies. My father had been laundering money for nearly a decade. Overseas, shell corporations. Falsified invoices. Insider trading with 2 major vendors. He was clever, but not military intelligence clever. And worse, he'd roped Camille into it. She'd been using the family charity to funnel fake grants into offshore accounts. Fake orphanages. Non-existent educational funds. Even my mother, who once claimed she was above business, had signatures on documents authorizing hush payments to silence whistleblowers. My family was a cartel wearing country club outfits. I backed up everything. Printed documents. Encrypted USBs. Password-protected folders in cloud storage. I created a file, Operation Black Silk. Each section meticulously detailed their crimes, complete with timelines, account numbers, and witnesses. But I wasn't ready to strike yet. First, I needed to make them sweat. The erosion begins. I started small. A single anonymous tip to a local reporter. Just a whisper. Check Mr. Tate's 2016 vendor agreements. You'll find some inconsistencies. The next week, a blog post appeared. Not a major outlet, just enough to spark rumors. Then I sent a second tip, this time to a competitor of Camille's fashion label. Attached were screenshots of counterfeit design files and distribution memos. Within days, a Twitter storm erupted. Accusations. Hashtags. Public outrage. My mother's charity board received an anonymous dossier with inconsistencies in fund allocation. She called it sabotage. She wasn't wrong, but it was only the beginning. They started to turn on each other. Cracks in the facade. I watched from afar as their perfect image began to unravel. Camille was the first to crack. She went on Instagram Live, crying, blaming jealous competitors for trying to ruin her. The comments section ripped her apart. My mother tried damage control, a televised interview with a local journalist. But when asked about the misallocated funds, she fumbled, stammered, leet. My father? He buried himself in meetings, tried to liquidate assets quietly, but not quiet enough, because I had already sent a copy of Operation Black Silk to a federal financial crimes task force, anonymously, of course. The investigation was underway, and they didn't even know I existed yet. The return. After 10 years, I returned home. Not in uniform, not as a son, but as something else entirely. I rented a modest home in the city under my new alias. I moved with precision, setting up surveillance, monitoring media chatter, watching their moves. Then I made contact, one by one, a handwritten letter to Camille. Your secrets were no masks. And soon, neither will you. An email to my mother. Charity begins at home, but your charity ends in court. And for my father, a gift. A small black box. Inside, a military pin, the same rank I had received the day they never showed. No note, just a reminder. The silence was over. The reckoning had begun. The first blow. The morning news was ablaze with headlines. Federal agents raid Tate Industries headquarters. Helicopters hovered. Journalists swarmed. And there he was, my father, being escorted out in cuffs. The footage went viral. Camille shut down all her socials within hours. Sponsors dropped her. Her line was pulled from retailers. The media was relentless. And my mother? She tried to play victim, claimed she was being targeted by political enemies. But the audit findings left no room for interpretation. The paper trail was ironclad. They were crumbling, just like I had planned. The confession. A week later, Camille cracked. She walked into a police precinct clutching a folder, one I had anonymously delivered to her doorstep the night before. Inside was a curated summary of her crimes and a typed note. If you want to save yourself, start talking. She gave a full confession. In exchange for reduced charges, she named names. My father, my mother, 2 board members, a senator. Her statement was the nail in their coffin. It was no longer a question of if they would fall, but how far. The confrontation. I visited him, not as Mr. Stone, as Kyler. He sat behind reinforced glass, wrists shackled, eyes hollow. For a moment, he didn't recognize me. Then he did. You. Me. I said, cold and calm. Funny how we always end up where we belong. He tried to speak. Apologize. Justify. I didn't let him. You left me alone on the most important day of my life. But I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. Because you taught me exactly who not to become. He dropped his gaze. I walked away. He never saw me again. Justice served. The court proceedings were public. The testimonies? Brutal. The evidence? Indisputable. My father was sentenced to 28 years for financial fraud, racketeering, and conspiracy. My mother received 12. Camille, thanks to her cooperation, served only 2 in a minimum security facility. Their empire? Liquidated. Properties seized. Assets auctioned. All that remained was a tarnished legacy and my clean conscience. The medal and the mirror. 1 year later, I stood once again on a stage. This time at a military gala. A crowd of soldiers and commanders clapped as I was awarded a Distinguished Service Medal. And in the audience, brothers in arms, friends, mentors, people who chose to stand by me. No empty seats. Later that night, I sat alone in my room, holding that old rank pin, the one I'd returned to my father, a symbol of everything I'd fought through, not just for revenge, but for peace. I smiled at my reflection. The boy they abandoned had become a man they could never break. And in the end, justice wasn't loud. It was surgical and final. Sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from enemies, but from the people who were supposed to love you. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or dreamed of? And if you believe in justice, redemption, and never letting pain define you, subscribe for more stories just like this. Until next time, stay sharp and stay strong.